Hey everybody out there, welcome to our first episode of Don't Ask an Agent. It's a real estate podcast where rather than focus on all the facts and figures and things that get pumped down our throats daily in this industry, what we want to look at are the actual stories of people who are living with the consequences of real estate as it is today. Um, Joseph, anything you want to add
Yeah.
to that?
The crux of Don't Ask an Agent is really understanding the people and the stories behind the real estate. In a data-driven world where, we're always getting reports about here's the quarterly statistics of, year over year house sales, and here's the increase in value in your property. Those are all very data-driven, and lost amongst all of that noise is, what's the reality of the person on the ground who's actually, in the market trying to buy a place, or trying to find a bigger place, or feeling like maybe there is no place for them in the real estate market. Um, yeah.
That's great. A little bit of background. My name is Cameron. I've been working in and around the real estate industry for over a decade now. I've done some in sales. I've done some in management. I've done stuff in marketing, and there's just about everywhere I've had some time to work in that sector of the field, with the exception of hotels. Never touched those things. Joseph, a little bit about you.
Yeah, so my name is Joseph. I'm a social worker. And so I have never worked in the real estate industry, never planned to. But I come from a background of working with individuals with a lot of different complex needs and seeing sort of the knock-on effects of how the real estate and the rental markets in the greater Vancouver area um, impact the services that are provided for the individuals that I work with. And so really kind of understanding that people side of the perspective, and digging down into, not just looking at, okay, you, the person who's buying the home, but who's your grocer? Who's your, daycare provider? Who are the people that are in your life in and providing the services that we need as a society? And where are they living? And how are they able to, live here? And, obviously everyone who knows the greater Vancouver area and knows our real estate market knows that we are officially now in a housing crisis. That's what the news says. It's official now. I don't know what it was for the last 5 years, but now it's officially a housing crisis.
It's unofficial.
Um,
That's
oh, it's
that's how that works.
unofficially a
Yeah, it's
housing
unofficial.
crisis up until now. And so that has an impact in our lives, and it has impacts that go just beyond the statistics and the numbers.
Yeah.
And everyone deserves to have a voice in the real estate market, whatever that may be, whether you're renting, whether you're owning, whether you're living with your parents. It doesn't matter. You deserve to have a voice and understand what's happening, and be heard and have your voice heard. That's why
So
I'm
joining us today is our first guest, Zachary, aka Big Z. As we get rolling, I don't want to introduce anything for you, Big Z, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a participant in the real estate market as I do own a home. Uh, uh, I
Is that what
am
we're looking at
a,
behind you right now?
yes, that is my dining room behind me. I am a condo dweller. So, I was a home owner, and I guess technically still a homeowner, but I've gone from a 2,700 square foot home to a 1180 square foot condo down by the river. But I'm not in a truck down by the river. I'm in a condo down by the river.
In a condo down by the river.
Yes,
It's
down
And
by
you've
the
got that
river.
80 square feet. I love how specific that was, Zachary. It was just 1180. Don't
80.
don't undercount that.
Yeah.
Got to
That
make
Yes,
80
sure that's
square
in
feet
there.
is a den. That 80 square feet is a den.
That's a
Uh,
single bedroom now.
oh,
uh,
yeah, well, you could, yeah. There is so many rental opportunities if you have extra space. And as the crisis has developed, um, there's definitely um, a great deal of validity to that, because you only have to check the want ads and pretty much anything, and you have people that are willing to rent closets. So
It's an 80 square
it
foot
is
closet.
an 84 square foot
It's got
closet.
the closet.
And you could get 800 a month for that easy. So that's a little
It's
bit about me. I'm a small business owner. Um,
okay. Quick promo yourself. What are you doing?
oh, well, the name of my company is Sign Fast Signs. We have a print division which is called Croxen as well that does paper printing. So we're pretty much, well, I'm pretty much designing and brokering signage and paper printing. So,
Nice, nice. Um, and then just sort of in a background, how'd you get into that?
well, I was a at-home dad for about 7 years. And then when both of our daughters got to the point where they are both in school full time, um, I was bored to tears. So I decided that I'm going to go find this. I'm going to go, you know, I'm going to go find myself a business to buy. So I went and found myself a business to buy. First, I was looking at a bakery because formerly I used to have a food addiction, but that has since been cured, kind of. Um, and then after I realized that I didn't want to be a baker or own a bakery. Um,
Was it you
the
didn't want
si-
to be a baker or you didn't want to own a bakery?
More, I didn't want to own a bakery. I
Okay.
didn't mind the baking. I actually quite enjoyed the baking. Um, but it just didn't work out. I would have been buying myself a job. So, with a lot of risk and it still just being a job. So I bought something that was a little less money, a little smaller of an operation that I could pretty much control and learn all the parts of it myself, which I did over a few years after experimenting with a number of art school graduates who wanted to work until they realized that it was actual work and not design. So I taught myself how to design after hours after my third designer. Uh, and that took about 3 months of dual screen YouTube teaching myself. Um, and so that's where I've been ever since. So
So would you kind of consider then? It sounds like you're pretty motivated to be a self-starter and kind of learning the profession or the task that you're kind of doing, right? I mean, you're teaching
well,
yourself design, you're teaching yourself how to run this business. You're pretty involved in that as a
I
go getter.
when I had a physical shop, Joseph, when I had a physical shop, yes, because um, you have your overhead, young family, children, home, mortgage, um, and there was no falling back on anything other than doing the work and getting paid. So that's part of entrepreneurship. Um, as Cameron well knows, being a real estate agent or being involved in real estate, even if you're within a brokerage, is pretty much, that's entrepreneurship. And if you don't work and you don't produce, you don't get paid. And owning a business is pretty much the same thing. So yeah. So I would, yeah, I was, I was pretty motivated by two beautiful little children, is what I would say, Joseph.
So
Good
and
motivation.
then family. What's the home life like now?
Oh, well, we're empty nesters now. So, um, yeah, we're empty nesters now. Um, I did, I quite enjoyed being at home with my two daughters. Um, and then as they as I said, they got into school full time, and I found a business to buy that I enjoyed, and we did the whole raise your kids. One went off to university. One decided that she didn't like school, um, and made her own way in life and got herself into a tech company and got in there. And instead of doing the traditional school thing, um, they tapped her for human resources and helped her along with getting her human resources certification. And that was a partnership between the company and her. So that's worked out quite well for her because at 23, um, she is making well above mid five figures, whereas most of her contemporaries are just graduating from school on their full ride scholarships because she was an athlete. Um, and most of them, sadly, especially if they go to the States to play sports, if they come home, most of them, their degrees aren't transferable to Canada without doing at least half a semester, and in most cases, a full year of other courses back here in Canada before their degree means anything here. So she saved herself a lot of money, a lot of grief, and is quite happy with what she does, and is more than adequately being compensated. So it's all worked out. And the oldest one is also working in the corporate world, and making
Doing well.
making a lot more than her contemporaries that she went to school with. So it's all good. So I've done my job, and now I can relax here down by the river. So,
So down by the river, whereabouts down by the river? Not in a van.
oh, we're not in a van. We're down in the Quayside neighborhood of New Westminster.
Okay. Okay.
So.
And and then what's the neighborhood like down there? Like what do you love about it?
Well, 140 steps from the front door of our building is access to, well, is the boardwalk, and you can go pretty much 3/4 of a mile one way, and it's now 3/4 of a mile the other way. It used to be a mile, but part of it burnt down. They haven't replaced
The
it, so you
W
can't.
burnt down.
The
Yeah.
W burnt down, so you can't get, there's no, you only get to the end of the actual land. There's no pier anymore for you to walk past or on. So, but nevertheless, what I love about the neighborhood is I was born and raised in Nova Scotia. My father was in the military; he was in the Navy. So being around the ocean and ships and all that has always been part of my life. And here on the river, it's a working river. I mean, there's stuff going on here all the time. And at some points, you are directly across from a container um, pier that is always has ongoings that 24 hours a day. I can get up in the middle of the night and go to the kitchen to get a glass of water and look across, and it's like, oh yeah, they're dragging containers off off of a ship. And there's also the carport where cars get dropped off of a giant ship, and it's a neighborhood there's something going on 24 hours a day, and I love it. You know, it's wonderful.
So was that sort of waterfront element big for you as to why you sort of chose that spot?
Um, Cameron, we had always had that in the back of our mind. We had always thought, hey, I'd really love to live right down by the river. But when we sold our house, as you know, because you helped with that, when we sold our house, we were then looking for accommodations or looking for our next home. And we had initially started just looking around New West, and it was a friend of ours that said, "Hey, I found you a penthouse down by the river." And it's like, well, really? Like, how many stories is the building? It's like 4. So it's like, oh, a penthouse. Okay. But needless to say, um, when we were told about that, we came down. Well, my wife and our youngest came down. Our oldest was away at school, and I was working, I think. Um, and so they had seen it. My wife loved it, and for me, it wasn't a matter, and it's never been that way. It's like I need a roof over my head. I need to like it, but I don't need to see it. I can take that on trust that my wife knows if I would like it or not. And she said, "Oh, I think you would love it." And it's like, "Any work need to be done?" It's like, "No, we could just move in." It's like, "Okay, if you love it, make an offer." So we made an offer, and then also Cameron helped us with crafting a letter to communicate our offer, and it was accepted. So
That
voila.
I want to kind of dig into that a little bit more, Zach. Just kind of the process of going from a detached home to a condo, right? Because obviously you mentioned, you're empty nesters now. You were looking to downsize. You sold your detached home. Where was your detached home? Where?
Our detached home was still in New West, but a different, more mature neighborhood. Um, it's called Connaught Heights, so it's
Hmm.
one of the older neighborhoods in New West. Um, and it was a lot of work, Joseph. It was a lot of work. We went, to go from that size of a house to a condo. One of the things that um, drug us to a condo was the fact that both of our children were athletes. The whole dream of, a house with a yard and the kids would be playing in the yard. My kids got to be mobile. Nobody was ever playing in a yard. They were at practices, and we were driving like mad things because of the age difference from one end of the city to another, and crossing paths to, at times wolf down a bit of something before some sort of sporting event or practice. So it was a lot of work because, in 20 years of being in that house, to get ready to move, we went through 3 25-yard bins of stuff out of that
That's a
house.
lot of stuff.
That's a
And
lot of stuff.
oh man, it was a lot of stuff. And also a garage that was kind of a garage slash hangout slash um, workshop for me. And when it when it was all said and done, Joseph, all the stuff that I had collected over the years in terms of woodworking tools, router, table saw, all kinds of stuff, I basically gave it away. People showed up and it's like, "Hey, could you use a table saw? How much? Take it." "What? Take it, please, just like take it." And yeah, so that was our last week at the house. Was like, "No, I'm tired." Basically, I'm also lazy, so it's like I don't want to do the posting on Facebook or anything, or Craigslist or whatever. It's just like, "Hey, free stuff," and people would just show up, and it's like, "No, man, take it." "Really? Yeah, take it." So I figure it was good karma, because this gentleman who was taking stuff and sending it to the Philippines for reuse or resale, he was all over that. He came one day and told him that, and it's like he came back for 3 days with 3 different contraptions of trailers filling up,
Oh,
because I said, "No, man, take it, because I need it gone." So so yeah, it was a large transition, Joseph, and it was an awful lot of work. but it got done.
And kind of how long ago was this? Like, how long ago did you move from there to the condo?
7 years ago now.
7 years ago. So kind of
Yeah.
right before
the dip.
the dip
So
that led to the
well, we were on the, I would say in terms of the house, we were on the high end of that curve. Condos hadn't drug along yet, so we were able to get our condo for, I thought, was a heck of a deal.
Are you comfortable sharing what, like, you just have to be specific, but
Oh,
like in a
well, it
range of
was
like what you sold your detached home for and what the condo
we sold
was
our
sort of in?
detached home for 1.12, and we bought the condo for 600 grand.
Okay.
So yeah,
Pretty
it
good.
worked out well. It worked out well. But you know, that profit or whatever that you would say that we made, a lot of that went into paying off bills. You know, because like a lot of people, you know, we were, you know, living the dreams, as they say, and everything was leveraged. You know, cars leveraged, house itself mortgage leveraged, like everything was leveraged. But with selling the house, we were able to get from under all of that and be able to live, which is a huge change. Working because you absolutely have to, as opposed to working because yeah, you have to, but if you need to take time off because you're tired or some sort of family emergency that you know you want it to be the guy that took care of that for somebody in your family, we were able to do that. Whereas before I was doing 14-15 hour days at that bloody sign shop, um just to make ends meet, and that became very tiring. um During that time I had 2 hip replacements. So yeah, it was nice to be able to actually realize a total change of lifestyle.
So what I'm hearing is sort of getting rid of a lot of the debt that you were carrying. I'm assuming some of that's a mortgage because you mentioned that before, and then
Yeah.
the cars and the lines of credit, everything that piles up, and probably some business stuff in there as well.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
so selling your house, like a big part of that sale was alleviating the kind of pressure that you were under.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I make no bones about that. Um, it's of course it's not something that you just, out notes share with the world, but I have no qualms in sharing this story. Um, that, we were at the time, and it was, to be totally transparent, it was all me. all the
Fair enough.
debt and all the debt and stupid all the debt and excuse my French, all this debt and stupid shit, that was me. um and then you only have to have one of those uh what do you call it, uh one of those cathartic, or what is it,
Cathartic.
Yeah.
cathartic events happen in your life to kind of go, oh, reality is hitting here, and you are a dumbass. It's like, yeah. So yeah. So it's awfully liberating, not only to get past that point, but to um realize the wisdom and lessons that you can obtain by having stuff like that happen to you, and it not going bad, but not going catastrophic, so that your life is more or less, oh, I'm starting over with nothing. We never got to the point where we were starting over with nothing, but it was a big hit to my ego as well as to my mindset of how I lived life. So, you know,
Hmm.
the
So
net when it was all done was, was indeed, freeing and allowing me to drop a lot of stress.
okay, so just kind of digging into this is kind of interesting. So here you are, it's 7, 8 years ago, and you're living and you're in the midst of everything, and everything's busy, and the kids maybe one's moved out, one's not out yet. You've got all this debt. What's your mindset like at that time? Like, how do you see yourself? And then after the move, you've gotten rid of everything, everybody's moved out. How do you see yourself now?
Oh, well, my life, and I believe as far as my children and my wife are concerned, my personality, or at least how I am with them, has totally changed. There's no pressure from outside stress causing me to blow up at people because somebody said something to me that I pissed me off, or didn't like, or they weren't listening, or you know especially with kids. It's like, you know you can tell kids all kinds of things, but the second they turn their back, they think that guy doesn't know anything, he's old, he's dumb, he don't know nothing, only to have it blow up and go, oh, so you're back and you didn't do as I asked or told you. And now I'm going to have to fix that, or your mother's going to have to fix that. And oh, here we are. So that has changed in terms of, like I said, just the general stress and the feeling of well being, um, the mental stress. Um, and I will freely admit that, at that time, like a lot of men that get themselves in that position, I had the occasional suicidal thought go through my head, and that kind of like low points where you're sitting by yourself alone thinking about shit and going, God, you know what? Those people would be, better off without me, or better off if I wasn't here. And it can, when I hear other people share that story, it's like, yeah, man, I know exactly where you're at. I know exactly how what you're thinking. You know, you're feeling pressure like you're in a bubble. It's coming from all sides, and any little thing could set you off to try to let some of that frustration out. So, um, going
Um,
through the two hip surgeries, that was just an added thing. So there was financial, there was health, there was relationship, like the whole gambit that you hear about from, um, you know self-help podcasts and such. That, yeah, I was there, man. That was happening to me. I was almost a poster child for that.
wow.
So,
So so I'm thinking in that like 7, 8 year ago time frame, on the one hand, quietly you're struggling with all this stuff. You said, you're kind of imagining you sitting in your basement, right? Going, gee,
in my
at the
garage.
same, oh, in your garage, okay.
Yeah.
And at the same time, though, I mean, are you also projecting this sort of image of success, and you've kind of got it all together, and well, you might not be the next, Wall Street billionaire, but you got your house and your family and everything's your
Oh,
business.
absolutely. The facade was loud and proud. It was there all the time. And then, and that adds uh, a, a a great deal of stress, because you always have that inner critic. That's the one thing that, when that inner critic talks to you, that guy's telling you the truth. You are in debt because you're stupid. You did dumbass things. You did things that you should have known better and do know better, but you did them anyway, looking for a short term fix and a short-term gratification. So, through all that, that's one of the characteristics that I think has drastically changed in me, is my patience for succeeding at something or being able to look longer term and realizing that shortcuts lead to problems, because there are no shortcuts. You got to work, and work is specific in terms that certain things take longer times to germinate or take more effort than you are putting out. And as long as you keep working, you will eventually get there. If you get frustrated and keep changing your mind and looking for, oh, that's hot, let's give that a go. Oh, that's hot, let's give that a go. You're pretty much spinning your wheels, because you never get ahead.
Mhm. So then, today that view of success that you project, or do you still see yourself as doing that, or what does success look like a little different, or how do you view accomplishment differently now?
Well, first and foremost, after having both hips done, it's like my biggest thing is my health. Um, Between both hips getting replaced, there's a almost a decade of pain, doctors, inability to do things, um, the irritation from constantly being in pain, which probably now lends itself to my ability to take a moment, take a pause, and breathe rather than simply always reacting. I when it's pretty much like being an animal. When you're in pain, constant pain, you are reactive all the time for anything. Doesn't matter. You're
Mhm.
reactive rather than being responsive.
Yeah. And then would you say then that your house was sort of it sounds to me like the house is a little bit of an anchor point. Was it weighing you down, or was it the thing that allowed you to get out of that situation?
Well, it was weighing me down, and I was constantly running scenarios through my head, trying to figure out how could I get from under, how could I get from under, how could we get from under, how could we actually get back to living, and um, I was well, I used to do those Facebook, coffee on the front steps, and that all started when I got to the point where I was, you know knowing that I needed to make a change, not knowing what that change was, and having hints of things come at me. One of them being my faith. And one day I was out on the steps with my coffee, and I was looking at this rose that was had a little bit of frost on it, and thinking, oh, that's really cool. And then, to go from that moment of recognizing beauty in something to, oh, there's that thought again. You're in debt. God, what are you going to do? I know it's Sunday morning, but hey, what, your life is screwed. And right, Monday morning, you're going to go back and it's still going to be screwed, except you're going to be trying to make money, um, so that you could, basically service your debt, not reduce your debt, just simply service your debt. So I I I was sitting there looking at this flower, and I said, "Hey, God, I am really tired. I need some help." It's like, "Tell me, what can I do here?" And bam, and I honestly believe it was the voice of God said, "Well, sell the house." I said, sell the house. Sell the house. And I thought about it, and I went back in and I pulled out a measuring tape, and I went, I sell the house. And I had instantly the thoughts like, how much of this house do we actually use? So as I said, it's a 2,700 square foot house. I measured it out, the rooms that we were constantly using. It was 980 square feet. We existed in
There's that 80
900.
square feet again.
Yeah.
You gotta have that 80 square feet.
Gotta have that 80 feet. I measured it out, and it was 980 square feet. So once I had that figured out, I simply went into our bedroom, and my wife was, was in bed, having a coffee, and I just said to her, I said, "Hey, honey, I was just outside," and I told her, what had happened. I said, I asked God. I said, "Hey, what should we do?" And he said, "Sell the house. What do you think?" She said, "Well, call Cameron." so that's what happened. I called Cameron. He came and he gave us the numbers. And my wife looked at me and went, "See, I told you." Because she had always said, she had said that a number of times, because we had along our street a number of people that, just, because the prices were where they were, just decide, screw it, we're going to sell our place and either go for something bigger in a different part of town, or um, we're going to move to the. We had a couple people that we knew that moved to the interior because things were a lot cheaper there, and we had people that we socialized with and traveled with, that sold and moved to other municipalities or the other side of town, and then we were the last uh, family out of this little group of five that had our children had kind of grown up together. And she said, "Yeah, phone Cameron." So we phoned Cameron, and the wheels were set in motion from that one insight.
What?
I see. I remember this. I remember this time, and I see. I didn't know all the stuff you were telling me, but I remember the time when that had happened, and I was, working with a lot of finance stuff around that time, and
Yeah.
we were in a training session about this, and I remember you didn't phone me though. I remember phoning you because they told us to go call all your past clients you'd ever worked with or all the people you know and say, "Hey, there's stupid money being made. You want to make stupid money." And that's where some of those financial elements of the presentation or what we worked on came together. And I remember I
Yeah.
came there with a realtor partner, and the two of us worked
Yes.
on that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious now, did I phone you after you'd measured the house?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But it wasn't the
Yeah.
same day. It had, no, was it? Maybe it was that Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. I phoned you, but I left a message.
Ah, okay. This is a long time ago, so I'm trying to
Yeah.
recreate
I,
this.
I left a
Yeah.
message, and then you phoned back in the early evening, and I told you what we had discussed, and you said, "Yeah, I will come over."
I, I remember that because I said, "Okay, I'll be there in half an hour."
An
I
hour. Yeah.
remember calling
Yeah.
the realtor that I was working with at the time. I said, "Hey, I got to work on something. I need you I got to be there." "Oh, okay, great. When are we doing this?" And they were all kind of a little bit thinking we had like days. And I said, "We're going in half an hour." I go, "What? What do you mean? I'm not ready. I haven't done this. I haven't done that." "It's fine. I got this. We're gonna do this together. It's okay."
It's okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
great.
So, Zach, since Cameron was directly involved in this process, I wanted to kind of ask some questions around what the process was like for
Okay.
you in kind of going through this and in making this decision. And thank you for sharing that story with us, because I mean, it is important to remember, I think, that these are all the things that are going through somebody's mind when we're making decisions about real estate.
Yes.
There's stress. There's these overwhelming feelings of burden, of not being able to get anywhere, and finding that clarity and that reason to kind of move forward. It's a really powerful story. So really appreciate that you shared that with us, because it's really cool to hear. But kind of coming through that, what was the process of being engaged with it? And, pretend Cameron's not here. He's not right there on the other side. What was the experience of kind of now he's put up a little for those of you who are listening, you can't see that he has put up a little C. He does not exist anymore on our Zoom call.
There
Um,
you go.
but what was that experience like for you in engaging with a realtor and with Cameron and kind of going through that? And and how much of what you were experiencing, because obviously Cameron's saying he didn't know all of the story, right? So it's the first time he's hearing it. So obviously it's not something you shared with them, but like, what were you sharing with them and how were you kind of engaging with the, the real estate industry as it was at that time? And what were some of the things that were kind of impacting that?
Well, I had shared that we had debt that we wanted to get rid of, and that was, you know, that was the main driver of this decision. But like I said, I had also shared the 980 square feet with him that we were existing in, and that all of the things that we, had gotten ourselves into regarding this, big house never came to fruition. I think our kids used the backyards for playing for like maybe 2, maybe 3 years, and then they were both playing soccer and lacrosse and dance, and uh, then the oldest one started playing golf. So I mean, we used it for, Labor Day, birthdays. The girls were born a week apart, 4 years and a week apart. So birthdays were always joined together. Labor Day went from one of 5 yards of the other couples that we socialized with. So dealing with Cameron and getting this done was was Joseph was pretty straightforward. We had decided, yes, this is what we want to do. I knew Cameron. Karen didn't know Cameron as well at that point, but I knew Cameron, and she trusted my judgment, and I trusted Cameron, and I trusted that, the realtor partner that he had brought was somebody that he had confidence in. So we were just ready to, like, here, this is what we need done. Give us some numbers. Here's the minimum of what we figure we would need to make this transition work the way we want it to work. Let's see if we can make it happen. And there was some things on our side, like the decluttering, that was, where a lot of the 3 25-yard bins come in. But the decluttering, getting rid of things, um, making sure that the house was presentable when we had the open houses. It was pretty straightforward. There wasn't much pressure. We were given more than ample time to get things arranged. So it went really well. I was happy with the experience on both sides. Like, even with getting the condo, um, Cameron helped very much with that. And like I said, we had looked at a couple of places before we were told about this place where we ended up. And a couple of times we had made arrangements to see something. We went in and saw it because Cameron hadn't arrived yet. And when we came out and gave him our thoughts, he goes, "Then why are we even bothering? Let's just go. Leave that. The hell with that then. That seems like you don't like it. So why bother trying to convince yourself to like it? Let's just go. There's other houses." So, his advice, after listening to our feedback on places, was also very helpful in that we didn't waste time. We didn't get kind of caught up in, should we, or maybe, or we might not find another place. It's like Joseph, we were down to the wire of less than a month before we had to be out of our place when we found this place. And we have just gone along, and we were kind of, a little bit anxious at first. And then one day my wife says, "You know what? I believe you. I believe the motivation that you got when you're outside talking to God. I believe that. So we're just gonna leave it. It's gonna happen." And it did. Like, about 3 days after she said that was when we got the phone call from our friend and said, "Hey, there's this place down right,
Check
on
it
the
out. Yeah.
quay. Go check it out." And we did, and this is the one we ended up with.
The rest is history.
And the rest is history.
So
So
go ahead, Joseph.
I have a twist that I want to have. This is a question that I've kind of been developing as we've been talking, because you're kind of presenting this experience with real estate so far to this point. I mean, we'll get to like what your experience is right now, what your feeling is right now on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually want to segue into that with something that I've sort of been developing. So you have your two daughters, right? And obviously,
Yes.
you kind of talked about they're for where they are in their careers, they're doing really well. They're very successful. There's a lot of really great things going on for them. And I'm curious, because you're a parent, because you have children who are kind of at that age where the real estate market, the rental market, being there, this is something that might be key for them. Compared to your experience and what you feel, how do you feel things are going to be for them? Are you worried about what the process is going to be like for them? Do you think it's going to be as straightforward or as positive, or are you concerned that that's going to be different now?
Well, for our oldest daughter, she does have a condo that she bought. She's already in the real estate market. She bought a place with her aunt in the same building that her aunt lives in. So she's already there. She has her own spot. She's been there for a little over 2 years, I think now, possibly 3. I'm not sure. Um, for her, because she had the support of her aunt, um, and for her aunt, it was an investment. For the kid, it was getting into the market. Um, she was a scholarship athlete, so the money that we had saved for her to go to university never got used. It got flipped into investments, and then being a first-time home buyer, she could,
She could utilize it.
yeah, she could utilize all that. So again, Joseph, it wasn't my ideas. It was my wife's ideas that has resulted in the success of my children. I was mainly there to help coach soccer and lacrosse, uh, and then as they got older and turned into young women, that was my wife's purview. I was just there to to make sure that nothing went awry.
So
So
the big takeaway where I'm getting out of this is listen to your wife, Zachary. Is that the
the big takeaway is to find a independent woman with a life of her own that you can then fall in love with and be partners rather than I need her. Always be in the position that I want her. And that has turned out to be fairly successful for us. I don't know how she feels about it because you know no, to be honest with you, in the straight economics of life, my wife financially does not need me. And I have never taken that for granted, that she's with me because she loves me and wants me, not because she needs me or feels obligated to me. And the, you know, one of the things that we have always done for forever is like everybody has their separate, financially has their separate things. We are joint on a couple of things just in case somebody you know, gets hit by a bloody bus, that you don't have to go through all the rigmarole to access that capital or those assets. But other than that, we both have our own bank accounts. We both have our own investments. And like I said, hers are significantly larger than mine. Although I I was the one, because I used to be a bit of a financial nerd when I was with the kids, because I had the time to, they're at day, they're at half day school. So I can drop them off and I can go for 3 or 4 hours of, learning stuff online. I've always been one that, I currently get up at about quarter after 3 in the morning. And I've been getting up, you know, relatively that early for pretty much most of my adult life. So learning to do things online, I could get that stuff all done before the kids were even awake or even my wife was awake. And I could, when I was at home with the girls, I could provide my end of the financial responsibilities with just the things that I was doing online before anybody even got up. But I was never courageous enough to go at it full bore trying to, you know, to use the phrase trying to get rich. I just wanted to provide. I wasn't thinking of, you know, great amount of wealth or great riches that I wouldn't have to ever work or even to the point it had never entered my thinking that, oh, if I got really good at this, I could do this for a few years and then I wouldn't have to work. I wouldn't have to do nothing. I could just take what I've made and live off of that. But, again, being a bit of a dumbass, I never kind of took it that far. I took it as far as like, I've got to learn to make what I need to make to help this household work while the girls are small. And, we had made that decision that we wanted a parent to be available to them at all times. So then when I bought my business, my wife left the corporation that she was working for and worked for a owner operator in that same business, um, so that she could control her hours. So she went from working in a corporate structure to working, um, she was required to do a minimum of 36 hours a week, but how she did that was up to her. So I would take the girls to school in the morning and she would pick them up at 2:45 in the afternoon so that they always had a parent, or like most children. I don't I you know they appreciate it now. There was a lot of times when they, apparently didn't seem to appreciate it, but they had a parent available to them before school and after school their entire lives. They only ever walked to school when we were in Connaught Heights and the school was 2 houses away from where we lived. So they could walk to school in like 3 minutes, leave the door, be at the school in like 3 minutes, like just, da, 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 in 3 minutes, be at the school. Any other time they've been, from their house to the front door of the school for everything their entire lives. So, you know, I think, in seeing who they are as people today, it was good for them. And especially as young women, it was really beneficial for them to have their mother with them at the end of the school day every day from, the teenage years till them graduating. So yeah, it's worked out really good.
So just to kind of sum up a lot of what we've talked about, or at least what we've pulled, here's Big Z, family man, entrepreneur, working away, projecting the image of success, um, finding yourself in some financial challenges and dealing with the weight of that at a certain point of your life, and then finding your way forward through selling your old home and letting go of some of the letting go of the 1,700 or so square feet that you didn't need, uh,
Yes.
to find 1,180 square feet that you really do use, uh,
Yes.
turning that around and changing the course of your life through that, not just in terms of where you're living and how you're living, but in terms of how you feel and the levels of stress and what life is really like as an experience for you. Um, am I right in sort of thinking that real estate was both a burden, like a burden and a blessing, uh, for you? It was the
It,
burden
it,
that got you moving, and it was the blessing that got you out.
yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Um,
And
I think
oh,
I think when we bought our house, we when we bought our house, that would have been 1994. No, 96. 1996. No, 1995, December of 95. When we bought our house, we had all the dreams that, doing all the right things. You buy a house, you're never going to save the money that you're going to get in the equity of your house, blah, 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 only to have the pressures of trying to leverage your house to have all your immediate wants met, like vacations, buy whatever you want, go out for dinner, go to movie, do all this,
sure,
all the stupid shit that you do when you're not thinking about, oh, if you put that on a credit card, eventually you're going to get to the point where you got to pay that back and there's going to be a lot of interest on that. And if you get yourself overextended on said credit card, you will pay double for whatever it is that you've gotten out of it or
yeah.
used it for.
So what I want to come back to then, uh, is there something you've always wanted to know about real estate, or some insight you've always wanted to have but never asked?
Hmm. Not really. I
Okay.
I I have in the last little while seen how you can, if you have a home and you haven't done stupid things, how that oh, we spoke about it last week, how a home could become the building of generational wealth if it is then able to be leveraged in terms of being a rental uh, opportunity and asset rather than a liability. And
Hmm.
we unfortunately we've happened to be in that season of our lives. You know, um, my wife sadly recently lost a parent, and my uh, surviving parent is also elderly, but I don't worry about her because she's 85 and goes out dancing twice a week, and my brother is in the same city, so he can relatively keep an eye out for her. And she has really good neighbors. It's funny, um, as I've aged, um, seeing how her neighborhood has changed and how she is surrounded now by uh young couple, well, not young couples, but younger than me couples that really have an affection for my mother and look out for her. So she's in Toronto but lives by herself, but she's not alone. Like, her neighbors do look out for her, which I really appreciate. And my brother is only he's still in Toronto, but he's like a half hour away from her. But he because he's regularly in to see her, and he says, "Oh yeah, like her neighbors come out and say hi. We're so and so, and oh, we love your mom, and na 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 na." So I myself on my side don't have to worry about that, but we're at the point where this type of an asset has come to her and her siblings, and one of her siblings, who is also a business owner, but is quite smart, and they also rely on their extended family, who, being immigrants, that was your always thing. Hey, get a house, get houses. You can never go wrong buying houses. And so, that kind of appreciation for real estate and seeing the potential of real estate has always been, a factor that is openly floating around her and her extended family.
Okay, beauty. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. Thanks for sharing all of this,
No
Big Z. This has
worries.
been fantastic. For anybody else who may be listening to this, uh, this is exactly what we want to find. What are the stories behind, your experience in housing? Because this is a big part of our world today. It is now an official crisis, housing crisis. I'm of the mindset that we've been probably fighting this crisis for a lot longer than we care to admit. And the reality of what we're going to be faced is going to be found in the stories of people, more so than it's going to be found in the numbers that get crunched and put in front of us all the time. So we'd love to hear your story too. And thank you, Zachary, for coming in and sharing such an incredible tale of your life and what's gone on around this, and how that's played in, and where your houses that you've lived in have come to pass through that. Um, any other closing thoughts,
Hmm, not really. I'm
Joseph?
just kind of
Not really. Not
not
really.
really.
No, yeah, again, appreciate it, Big Z, for coming on. It's always great to chat with you, and
Thank you.
hopefully I'll run into you down on the quay sometimes when I'm walking down there. Um, and
I'm
yeah,
here every day.
but I
Every
look for the
day.
guy staring at the port and watching the tugboats go by. Um, and yeah, if you have a story about real estate, it doesn't have to be a glowing review of Cameron. If you've got a story about real estate, we want to hear it. Obviously here we have a story of how real estate, as Cameron kind of pointed out, was both the demon and the savior to an extent. It was both the burden on the back, and also um, the thing that gave Zachary an opportunity to move past some of those challenges. And there are stories out there that are going to be like that. There's going to be stories where that's not the case, and we want to hear all those stories, because it all provides that picture that gets lost in the shuffle of the news and the noise. So yeah, we want to hear from you. Reach out. Cameron, I don't know what our email address is. So
We'll put it in links and descriptions and everything. It'll be fine. Well,
There you
to
go.
to anybody who's listening, we hope you enjoyed our first little recording. We hope you enjoyed Big Z's story. We'd love to hear your story too. Uh, Take care, everybody.